When my younger brother called, I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years. Not after the argument that split the family into silence. But that night, something made me pick up. He sounded tired. Not angry, not defensive, just tired, he said. He needed a place to stay for a few days. Just until he figured things out. I should have asked more questions. Premier did not. He arrived with 1 suitcase and a promise. Just a week, he said. The first few days were quiet. We barely spoke about the past. It felt like we were both pretending nothing had happened. A week passé. Ten à note. He stopped mentioning when he would leave. His suitcase slowly emptied into drawers. Shoes appeared by the door. Groceries I didn't buy filled the fridge. It stopped feeling temporary. But every time I tried to bring it up, he changed the subject. He talked about finding work. About getting back on his feet. I wanted to believe him. Son premier did. But small things began to shift. He rearranged the living room without asking. He answered the door like it was his house. He even started telling people he lived here. That word stayed with me. Lived. Novice. Nosta. Living. 3 months later, I came home from work and my key didn't work. At first, I thought the lock was broken. Then I noticed it had been replaced. Première noquette. He opened the door like nothing was wrong. I asked why the locks were changed. He said it was for security. I asked why I didn't have a key. He didn't answer right away. That silence told me more than words. Something had changed. Not the house. Not the locks. The boundaries. And suddenly, I realized I had never set them. I stood outside my own house, unsure whether to argue or laugh. He stepped aside and let me in, as if he were doing me a favor. That was the moment something inside me shifted. No danger. Not even betrayal. Juste clarity. I began to see how slowly this had happened. How each small compromise had led here. 1 extra week. One avoided conversation. One assumption that things would fix themselves. Te ne vedo. That night, we finally talked. Realitalked. About why he had called. About why I had said yes without asking questions. It turned out neither of us had been honest at the beginning. He wasn't just figuring things out. He had nowhere else to go. And I wasn't just helping him. I was trying to repair something we never addressed. But avoiding truth doesn't fix relationships. It only delays conflict. We sat there longer than either of us expected. The conversation was uncomfortable. But it was real. For the first time, we were not pretending to be fine. We were just honest. The next morning, I handed him a new key. Not because the house was his, but because we had finally agreed on what it wasn't. It wasn't permanent. It wasn't ownership. It was temporary help with clear boundaries. Something we should have defined months earlier. We wrote down a plan. Not because we didn't trust each other. Because we needed structure. And structure, we realized, protects relationships. Weeks passed, and the tension slowly eased. Effundwork. He started saving. And the house began to feel like mine again. But not in the way it had before. Now, it also felt like a place where something difficult had been faced instead of ignored. One evening he packed the same suitcase he had arrived with. This time it was heavier. Not just with clothes, but with the effort of starting again. We stood by the door longer than expected. There was nothing dramatic to say. No apology that could rewrite the past. Just acknowledgement that we had both made mistakes. And both chosen to deal with them. After I left again. But it didn't feel empty. It felt settled. Because sometimes conflict isn't the thing that breaks relationships. Avoir dignité. Now, when I lock the door each night, I understand something I didn't before. A home is not defined by who stays, but by the boundaries that protect it. Helping someone doesn't mean disappearing yourself. And kindness without clarity often turns into resentment. We both learned that lesson the hard way. But we learned it. And sometimes that's enough to change everything. The locks were changed again after that. This time, with both our agreement. Not as a symbol of exclusion, but as a reminder that respect requires definition. And relationships survive better when expectations are spoken. We talk more now than we did before all of this. Strangely, distance made honesty easier. And honesty made connection possible again. Looking back, the problem was never about the house. It was about what we never said to each other. And the moment we finally did, everything began to change. Sometimes resolution doesn't look dramatic. It looks like to people choosing to do better. One conversation at a time. That's what stayed with me. Long after the suitcase was gone. And the house was quiet again. Because sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones that save the relationship and the people inside it.